Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Media Boat Podcast, your weekly edition where we talk about movies, TV, music, and video games. And now more sports because it's opening day for baseball. Uh, my name's Mike. His name is Matt.
My name's Matt. His name's Mike. Thank you for joining us today for the Media Boat Podcast. Today is March the 27th, 2025. Today is episode 480. And let's jump right into it.
Let's get right into it. We got a lot to cover, a lot of topics, and we're going to start with the music section. Start the music section with the Billboard. Start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And the hottest song in the land is Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA. Again. At two, Evil Jazero Dan by Playboy Cardi.
Jordan with a zero.
Right, so Jazero Dan. If they wanted it to be an O, they would have put an O. At three, Die with a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Also at four, Rather Lie by Playboy Cardi and The Weeknd. And then coming in at number five, The Giver by Chapel Roan.
Yep. So a couple of songs off of the new Playboy Cardi record and the new Chapel Roan single.
Yep. And there's a reason Playboy Cardi's up at the top five because number one on the Billboard 200 Your Album chart is Music. That's the name of the album,
Yep.
Music by Playboy Cardi. At two, Mayhem, still in all caps by Lady Gaga. At three, Ginks or GNX by Kendrick Lamar. At four, Some Sexy Songs for You by Drake and Party Next Door. And rounding your top five, SOS by SZA.
Yep.
All right. If you don't like any of those albums, we have new releases, starting with Only Dust Remains by Back Cross Wash.
Gross.
Well, the X is in there, so I assume it's cross. Or it could just be backwash. We also have Lonely People with Power by Deaf Heaven. Sweetness by Girl Puppy. Patience, comma, Moonbeam by Great Grandpa. Forever is a Feeling by Lucy Dacus. Rush Mere by Mumford and Sons. Yes,
Yes,
that
that Mumford
Mumford
and Sons.
and Son. There's also Hard Times, Furious Dancing by Snapped Ankles. Although I'm sure that if you had Hard Times Furiously Dancing, you would indeed have Snapped Ankles.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
There's also Portrait of My Heart by Spelling. Dreams on Toast by The Darkness. Yes, that
Yes.
The Darkness.
Yeah, like the I believe in a thing called love, darkness.
Yes, Dreams on Toast. We also have IC-02 Pagoda by Unknown Mortal Orchestra. Yes, that Unknown
Mhm.
Mortal Orchestra. And lastly, for all you 90s kids out there, based on a true story by Will Smith. Not that
Yes,
Will Smith, but yes, that Will Smith.
that Will Smith, not the guy on the Dodgers.
Right, who
Although
is
I
more
would love
relevant
that.
now because baseball is starting. But the other, Will Smith.
Yeah,
Although, should we say Will Smith based on a true story? Comma based on a true story?
I don't know. I don't know what the proper name is.
All
But
right.
yeah, I will be listening to the Great Grandpa record and the Lucy Dacus record, and probably the Girl Puppy record. Actually, a really stacked week for me.
What of course, could you have Rushmore? I mean Rushmere. Cashmere, Rushmere, Mumford and Sons.
Not necessarily been my thing, but Christy has been known to love a Mumford and Sons, so I will let her know.
Yeah, we'll let her know about that. All right, let's get into the music news.
Hmm.
And, if I had $200 million just lying around, of all the things I could buy, this would not be one of them.
No?
Probably not. Digital music OG, Napster, is
What year is
now
this?
owned. Yep, that Napster, made in many 2000s jokes on movies, is now owned by immersive technology company Infinite Reality, which announced the deal on Tuesday to acquire the music streamer for $207 million. Infinite Reality plans to expand Napster beyond just a basic music streaming service, where it faces far bigger competitors like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon, iHeart, uh, Tidal, whatever else is streaming on my phone, podcasting stuff, Podbean, Shark Pod, uh, Podpad, you know, music, SoundCloud.
Is Podpad your startup?
Well, you got your pods and you got your music
You
pads,
need to
your
put
pod
them in the
pad.
pad. Just
Yeah,
makes sense.
totally. It's usually how you're gonna leap from one pad to the next, like a frog.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to one song, then the next, then the next album, then the next genre. You're just
We don't
leaping
have time.
everywhere.
We don't have time for this bit.
Oh, you're enjoying it. And if you are enjoying it, you can email us and tell me how much you're enjoying this bit at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com.
I gotta cook a hummus pasta for my girlfriend's parents tonight, so we gotta end.
All right. Well, let's go to the press release where Infinite Reality said Napster will, quote, become a social music platform that prioritizes active fan engagement over passive listening and will let artists connect with, own, and monetize the relationship with their fans. Close quote. Infinite Reality's ideas for Napster include, but not limited to, creating branded 3D virtual spaces for all those famous virtual concerts, social listening parties, and other community based experiences, like selling merchandise, those digital contents, those event tickets, using AI powered customer service, sales, community management, personalization, stalking you, building a profile, saying you like this band, you should try this other band, just selling out all your information as if it's just freely given to them by Napster in the social media site. Because who isn't selling information these days? I mean, we aren't. Then again, we don't really collect data like that, do we?
Right, yeah, we don't. This is a wild story for multiple reasons. Obviously, the obvious one is, wait,
Napster's
Napster
alive.
again? Yeah, like this is a company name that has been changed hands 4 times now. This is the fourth time. So that's interesting already on its face. But then on top of that, this is really ambitious. All the things they're trying to do, they're really trying to go for it. Like to the point where I think once this actually happens, maybe half of this stuff doesn't actually become realized. Like they're saying now that they want to build 3D virtual spaces for concerts. I have my doubts. Um, I think more likely this is going to be kind of a boilerplate music streaming service, and that's if they get that off the ground. And the most unfortunate part is I'm getting a little bit of whiplash with this because at the beginning it seems kind of promising, right? Like they're basically pitching Napster as the anti-Spotify, basically saying, no, we're not going to aim towards background music and like passive listening. We want it to be active, which is good. That fixes one of the biggest problems of Spotify. But And by the time you get to the end of the story, it's kind of you're just exhausted by all the different things that they want to do. And when you hit AI powered customer service, it all kind of falls apart. And so, yeah, I have no idea what this thing actually will be by the time they build it, but chances are it will not be as grand as these plans suggest.
Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be misremembering this, but wasn't MySpace, the revival of MySpace, supposed to be the new innovative way for fans to engage with band members?
Yes, that was the pitch. That was, yeah, that era of MySpace, kind of the revival era of MySpace, which didn't last very long. That was the pitch for that. It was supposed to be for music. It was supposed to be like an interactive kind of social media for music. And no, it didn't catch on. And I think that to this day, no one can figure out how to make a social media platform based around music. It just seems like an idea that so many people have had that just never really works.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there also a K-pop app where you can follow certain K-pop stars and they would provide news and updates to this feed for fans?
I mean, that probably still exists. That's beyond my scope, though, knowing not much about K-pop.
All right.
But
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a video game out there where you could form a band and rock with other people online in a social gathering experience?
yeah, there's a social aspect to Rock Band, but that is a video game, and that's a very different thing.
But isn't that also now part of Fortnite where you can go and have a social experience with other players?
I mean, yes, clearly what they're doing with the quote of 3D virtual spaces for virtual concerts is they're trying to replicate what Fortnite has been successful at doing. But ultimately, who can afford to do that? And not your smaller bands, that's for sure. And so it's going to air towards the side of the big labels.
So, as a point I'm making here is that as lovingly noteworthy this is, $200 million, that's just to acquire Napster. That's
Yeah,
not to
do all
like
this.
do all this other stuff they want to do with it. That's going to be an extra 200 to $800 million that they have to sink into this before it even turns around to get generates users on it.
Yeah,
So
I have my doubts about this whole
yes, doubts
project.
are super high on this, and it seems very niche that they're trying to target music and artists
Yeah.
to a
Well, they
degree that like I don't know, not like they should pay me for this idea, but you can expand on that. You don't have to just stick to just strictly music people. There's athletes out there who sure like to have this 3D space. There's actors out there who will hawk anything these days. Yeah, they just throw it like a
hawk
football
'em,
player. Hawk
hawk a
them.
loogie.
Yep. Hawk a opening day pitch.
Yeah, something like that. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later. All right. But first off, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
All right. Do you need to serve me up some Japanese breakfast?
Yeah, I will. I'll be quick. Japanese Breakfast has a new record. It's called For Melancholy Brunettes, parentheses, and Sad Women, end parentheses. This is Michelle Zauner's follow-up to Jubilee, which came out a handful of years ago. And a lot has changed for Michelle since that album came out. She also put out a memoir, Crying in H Mart, which was a New York Times bestseller and was even optioned for a movie. She's kind of become a mini celebrity, as much as a mini celebrity can, like an indie musician can be a mini celebrity. But anyway, For Melancholy Brunettes is very similar to Jubilee in its vibes. It's very beautiful, very orchestral. The vibes are immaculate. Like it's a very chill record. But that goes into some pretty deep topics. It's very much about kind of her grappling with this new idea of fame and about like this experiencing a new kind of like life making this music. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know if it's really sunk into like the level of Jubilee for me quite yet. It has Jeff Bridges on it. Fun fact.
Hmm.
Yeah, shows up for one song. Yeah, I recommend it for people who like Japanese breakfast. It's definitely in the same wheelhouse as her last record.
All right. So if you liked your last record, it's decent, good,
It's good.
better,
It's good.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it.
Yes, because we got a lot to talk about
Yeah.
later in the podcast. So let's get into video games where we have
Yes.
new release. Is technically they're releasing. We have Saga Frontier 2, the remastered version for PC, PS4, and the Switch.
Yep.
The first Berserker, Kazan for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. And then your big release, Atomfall, for everything, wide release, but the Switch.
Yeah. Note about Atomfall. That is a day one Game Pass game. So if you have
Mhm.
Game Pass, you have it available. I might check this out. In case people don't know what it is, it's Rebellion, the developer Rebellion's take on kind of a Fallout-esque post-apocalyptic open world thing. Although from what I understand, it is less like Fallout in its combat, and also the open worlds are smaller. Think closer to something like Avowed, not a giant open world game, but a more compartmentalized one.
All right. Let's get into our video game news. And we're going to start over, not with today's news, we'll get there, but with Ubisoft, because they have announced that they're creating a subsidiary which will focus on its main three IPs and will be partly owned by Tencent. But let's not worry about that right now. So, the new subsidiary will be based on Pillar 1, Assassin's Creed. Very obvious. Pillar 2, Far Cry. Also very obvious. Pillar 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six brands. And will be, quote, backed by greater investment and boosted creative capabilities. Close quote. This is done in an attempt to push each series forward. This subsidiary, which has been valued at around 4 billion euros, and Tencent will be investing another 1.6 billion, sorry, 1.16 billion euros to gain a minority stake, which for a minority stake, it is still 25% in the company. What exactly this means for fans of the series remains to be seen at this stage, but the investment by Tencent likely gives it a degree of influence over the future direction of Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and the Far Cry series.
Mhm. So there's one little tidbit of information here that the story does not have that I'll fill y'all in on.
Is
So
it why
this
did they not consider rabbits a pillar of Ubisoft?
no, that'll
Why
stay
did they
with
not consider Watch Dogs a pillar of Ubisoft?
no, those IPs will stay with Ubisoft proper, which will still exist.
Mhm.
There's no word on what the name of this subsidiary will be either. But I guess we'll find out sooner than later. So okay, so the context that's missing from the story is that this was a last-ditch desperate attempt from a total buyout from Tencent. Tencent has been chasing Ubisoft for years. They were already a partial owner. The only thing keeping them from being full owners of it were the Guillemot brothers, who own the studio. They basically were holding it hostage, and this deal only happens so that they get to keep ownership of the company Ubisoft. That's what the basically the compromise was.
Mhm.
In order to do that, in order to keep ownership of the company, despite their years of mismanagement and sexual assault accusations within the company and all sorts of mess over the last decade and a half. The only reason why they're allowed to is because Tencent basically compromised with them and said, well, okay, if you spin off a company with your most successful IPs, then we'll let you stay. And that's what happened here. So it's pretty messy. What does this mean for employees of Ubisoft? Who knows yet? They said that there will be a division of sorts. If you were working on Assassin's Creed games, you're probably going to move with that team to this new situation, but it's really unclear exactly if there's going to be layoffs or not because of this. Chances are there probably will be. There always are. Um, so yeah, it's a weird thing. And yeah, it is potentially interesting that Tencent has some say in how these franchises evolve. If I was to guess off the top of my head of how what that would mean, I would guess probably even more marketing, even more of a multimedia push for these franchises. And I say even more because, of course, Ubisoft hasn't been no stranger to putting Assassin's Creed literally everywhere you look.
Hmm.
But I imagine that will happen more now with Tencent money involved. I think you're going to see a lot more Assassin's Creed, more Far Cry, more Rainbow Six. I imagine a big, big push for those three pillars, even more so than we've seen before. I think this is when you finally see that Assassin's Creed platform strategy that we heard about a few years ago actually come into being because that's a way that they can push out a lot of Assassin's Creed content to players as fast as possible.
And let's be real here. What this means is that they're going to push adding multiplayer to all of these platforms. They're going to push
Maybe
microtransactions to all of these platforms. They
that's a
want
guarantee.
Rainbow Six to be as big as Call of Duty. They want Far Cry to be big and
Yeah.
microtransactioned out and skins and weapons and boosts and timed
Yep.
events and all that stuff. It,
Condiments?
y- yes, all the condiments.
You can give me ketchup in Rainbow Six Siege?
Mustard!
That was the obvious joke. I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Yes.
right. You're right. Mustard. Yeah,
Yes.
it's an interesting time to do this considering the state of all these franchises. We're probably due for a Far Cry. 7 is probably coming, if not announced this year, probably 26. Um, Assassin's Creed Shadows is getting pretty good reviews,
Hmm.
and is kind of seen as like a comeback story. And then Rainbow Six Siege just relaunched with basically a reworked, like reworked version of the game. So yeah, it's interesting now that we're gonna have slightly different leadership. I don't know. We'll see what happens. This is kind of a big question mark since this just dropped today. But we should learn more very soon.
All right. Which of these three gets a mobile match three game first? Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or Rainbow Six?
Assassin's Creed, 100%. You could do like a Puzzles and Dragons with it,
Well, see, I was thinking that with Rainbow Six, you just have all the different colors from the rainbows. You
but
have
you
the
can only
six
match
colors of the
six.
rainbow.
Yeah,
Yeah, you match six, and it's just
match
a
six.
huge barrage of like
No, it's
weapons.
no, it's a merge game actually, where you're merging guns to
Oh,
become bigger guns.
rainbow.
There we go. Solved it. All right. Anyways.
All right. Our checks in the mail.
Yes.
All right. There was also
Yes.
events and news that happened today, almost 12 hours ago to the time. Nintendo Direct
Yeah.
came out and talked about a bunch of different opportunities in games coming soon and later this year, and some coming next year as a 2026 in there,
Yeah.
including an upcoming Metroid game.
It was a bit of a surprise, because they just announced it this week that this was going to happen.
Mhm.
It is, of course, just a week away from the big Nintendo Direct that will be the reveal of the Switch 2. That takes
Right,
place on Wednesday, April 2nd.
which we will
So
talk
it
about
was,
all of that next
yeah.
podcast.
So in this case, this was the last Nintendo Direct for the current Switch. And so basically, they took everything the last bits of first party and a lot of third party Nintendo Switch games and just spread them out all over on the table for everyone to see. As you mentioned, the big thing was new footage of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Everybody thought that this was going to be a big pillar of next week's show, so it was pretty surprising to see it here. Not saying that it couldn't also show up next week. I would probably put a few dollars on that it does.
Mhm.
But because looking at that footage, I don't think that that's running on a Switch, but that's just my personal opinion. Like Prime Remastered looked good on the Switch, but this looks like something else. Yeah, they showed new footage. So Samus has psychic powers now. She can move things with her just the power of her hand, which is pretty cool. The internet is having fun with that right now. I've seen a lot of fan art of Samus psychically moving pizza to her mouth to eat, which has been pretty
As
fun.
you should.
Yeah, that's what I would do with my psychic powers if I had them. Anyway, so yeah, that looks good. Some other tidbits of the show. The big ones were the revival of two kind of long dormant Nintendo franchises, Rhythm Heaven, which was last seen on the Wii, and Tamagotchi Life. Sorry, it's so easy to say Tamagotchi when you're trying to
I
say
kept saying
Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi while it
Yeah.
was showing, yes.
They also showed a Tamagotchi game, which is really confusing.
Yes.
But Tamagotchi Life was a 3DS game that is basically a me-driven life sim where
Hmm.
you create me's based on people you know in real life or celebrities or whatever, and you watch them interact with each other. And so this is a direct sequel to that game, which seems wild. So
Also seems like they got rid of the me verse talking noise, and like at least hinted that it'd be
it's
like
still there.
actual like
Eh,
voice activated at the very
You
end there.
know, it seems like it's still the same, maybe a better technology behind it. It
Uh,
is a little weird in this day and age of AI voices to hear that again because it is kind of
yes.
whiplash where it's like, oh, wait, this is what this always was. So
Hmm.
that part was kind of weird. But sure, both of those games are classic weird Nintendo. And I'm glad that weird Nintendo is showing up at the end of the Switch life cycle. Other than that, there was just a cavalcade of third-party games. Did any of those reveals look good to you in particular?
Patapon,
Yep.
Patapon came out, looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Dragon Age, wait, was it Dragon Age? One and
No.
two.
Dragon Quest
Dragon
1 and
Quest
2.
1 and 2 remastered.
Yeah.
And we got some more Pokemon Legends ZA
Yeah, a little bit
footage.
more footage and a little bit more story details about ZA,
Mhm.
which was interesting. Still not going to play that, but I'm happy for the people who are.
Yes. But the biggest announcement, and one that had been many people asking many questions on how is this
Sure.
actually going to work, is games being passed between consoles.
Right.
Family sharing games.
Yeah, so this reminded me of two things. One, it reminded me kind of like, remember when they announced the Xbox One originally, and we're talking about digital game sharing there, where it's like, oh, you
Hmm.
can lend it to a friend for a period of time, and everybody like cried foul because it was 2012 and nobody knew how to handle that news yet.
Right. And then
Um,
PlayStation came out and said, here, you can use the
yeah,
game.
right. The classic handing the game over.
Handing the
So
disc. Yes.
that was one thing it reminded me of. But two, it also kind of reminded me of the Steam's family sharing
Hmm.
and how a lot of modern family sharing works on both PC and on consoles now. I honestly think this is a good solution. I think it makes sense because I think the thing that Nintendo realized is, oh, we can do something that none of the other consoles can do because we know that two Switches can literally be in the same place at the same time because they are portable systems.
Hmm.
That's how it's going to work because that was the missing piece, right? Like on Xbox and like a PlayStation, you can't just let somebody borrow your game because that requires you to have their sign in, you have to sign in, you have to authorize all that business.
Yep.
So they solved it by basically saying like, well, what if you were in person with another Switch? You know that person clearly because you are seeing them, you're physically next to them.
Hmm.
So, thus, it's okay if you let them borrow that for 14 days. I think it's brilliant. I think that that's a perfect solution to this problem. And as for the game transfer stuff, not the rental, but the transfer stuff, obviously, this is how you get your games on the Switch too. They have to do this in order to have a pipeline for the
Hmm.
Switch 2 because the alternative was what they did with the 3DS, where you had to do an entire system transfer. And the problem with that is, of course, then you have nothing left over on the first 3DS. They couldn't do that with Switch and Switch 2 because what they're thinking in the back of their head is, well, what if you're in a family where, say, the older brother gets a Switch 2, the younger brother wants to play, younger brother could play the old Switch while the older brother they're going to
Hmm.
still have games on their system. So yeah, and the fact that they can move back and forth, it solves a lot of those family issues. And it reminds me a lot of the issues that were people were having around the time of Animal Crossing New Horizons, where
Hmm.
people were flabbergasted that they had to buy two copies
Two
of the
copies.
game to create new islands. This eliminates that problem because the game saves are native to the Switch. So
Hmm.
if you transfer it back, you can play your island. If you transfer it to your, say, your partner's Switch, they can have their own island finally with one cartridge or
But
digital
weren't they
cartridge in this
native?
case.
I thought they were native to the profile, not the
It
console.
depends on the game.
Okay.
But yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating solution, I think, and a very Nintendo-like solution to a modern video game problem. I think it's fine. It's a little confusing, but I think it works.
I think that having this initial share of you have to be in the same place using the same Wi-Fi to get that handshake for the switches means you have to be in person and know this person
Right.
before you can
Yeah.
start like passing games back and forth.
And I think that's the only way this happens. The only way that Nintendo is okay with this is that they
Mhm.
know that it's not like being used for nefarious means, and this is a way to prevent that.
Why would we do that for nefarious means? It's not going to get two people meeting up in an airport, connecting over an airport Wi-Fi, and then going their separate ways across the country, but still sharing games, right?
Yeah, never. No one would ever do that.
No, no. It takes too long with airport Wi-Fi nowadays. You need to have
Yeah.
like a home secure connection or a bubble hotspot to get
Yeah.
across like any of this.
Oh, I was also going to mention, you mentioned the Patapon re-release.
Yes,
You also probably loved the announcement of a new Everybody's Golf.
I did.
So
I'm curious if this is going to be a Switch only or if it's going to come to everything.
it probably will come to everything, but that's a
Yes,
good question because you might notice those are two games that were published by Sony.
yes.
So everybody's speculation about, oh, Microsoft is going to be coming in full force when the Switch 2 gets announced. I did not expect this Nintendo Direct to be so full of Sony IP. It
Everybody's
really caught
golf
me off
hot
guard.
shots.
Yeah, which is funny because obviously in the
Eventually called Hot
US,
Shots
the Everybody's
Golf.
Golf games used to be called Hot Shots. So it follows in the proud tradition of Resident Evil Biohazard and Like a Dragon or Yakuza Like a
So,
Dragon as
and
games
then
that
they
have the
switch.
subtitle of their Japanese counterpart.
Yep,
And they're probably reversed in Japan, which is funny. It was Biohazard Resident Evil in Japan.
right.
So yeah, it could be Hot Shots Everybody's Golf.
Well, I know what I'm playing this summer.
Yeah, this
You
could
can
be a good
expect to
Switch
see it
game.
on my number two spot this year.
So anything else from the Nintendo Direct?
Uh, no, I mean it was like I said, it was kind of a surprise Nintendo Direct coming out this
Yeah.
early, but they said that all Switch 2 news was going to be next week, and we'll be back
Yes.
next week for sure, talking about all the Switch 2 news that come out
Yeah.
and everyone that's already dissected it.
And depending on whether pre-orders are open, probably $500 lighter.
Is that what you're going to put it at right now?
I mean, I
$500?
know I'm gonna need it. So yeah, it's just a matter of how available they are and how in demand they are, because I bet that they're gonna be a hot commodity for a while.
All right, I'm putting that down for you. All right,
Oh, price
I'm gonna.
prediction. Yeah, I think it's 4.99. That's what I've been saying this entire time.
All right, you're gonna do a 4.99. I say they're gonna have to find a way to make it less.
I
So,
don't think that's true. I think maybe that was true if, let's say, the election had gone the other way.
oh, tariffs.
Yeah, I think that long term they're gonna have to really think about the price of this thing.
Right. I mean, it's not going to see a $700 console for a Switch 2. Want people
Oh
to sell
boy.
these things.
It won't be 700. I can
All
say that
right.
much. All right.
All right. So no PS3. Got it. We'll get to that Foreman Grill look-alike in a
Yeah.
bit here. All right. Did you play anything?
Just more the show in anticipation of baseball, but we'll talk about that later.
All right. I got two updates. First, Pokemon Pocket,
Yes.
Pokemon TCC Park Pocket,
You got any shinies?
officially the shinies. I have not received any shinies, but I've only opened 10 packs so far. Wait, no,
Shiny.
11, 12 packs so far.
Okay.
No shinies so far. But I didn't do like my normal 30 that I normally do when a new pack comes out.
Sure.
Not because I don't have the money for it or the time for it, but because I'm waiting to like reset my timer. So as soon as the first day hits, the due day hits, 1 minute later, I'll just open the new pack so my timer resets. Right now it's off by a couple of hours.
Sure.
You know, gotta get in the system that way. And second, the newest Infinity Nikki update came out. So I am once again no longer standing at the edge of infinity. Back to the grind.
There you go. Back to the grind.
Back to the grind.
You've
All right.
officially played more than of that game than I have, by the way. I
Probably.
compl
Yes.
I dropped off. Not that I wanted to, it's just that I just don't have time for that and other games.
Right.
And so yeah,
You didn't have the heart to grind everything. Because
no,
getting
I
that
just
aura wishful aura dress is
yeah,
such a daily
that was
grind. Because a
such
lot of
a
this stuff was
block for me.
once a day like items. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess I can log in real quick and do like a five
Yeah.
minute run.
Turns
That's all I
out
did with that
if
game.
turns out if I want to play a game to grind, it's the show and I'm gonna grind pitches. I'm not gonna run around in Infinity Nikki.
Yeah. You
Oh well.
grind those pitches into the catcher's mitt.
Grinding sliders.
Grinding the sliders. Speaking of grinding sliders, let's get us over into the sports section because if you
Yes.
can't tell by your hat and my shirt, it is opening day for the MLB. I see the reflection going on there.
Well, it's a commercial right now. I was hoping it would actually be a baseball game, but
It is a game.
it's a
Yeah,
commercial. But yeah.
you're watching the Dodger game right now. Who's
No,
going?
although I do have a note about that in a second. But no, the only one right now that I have current access to is the Twins and
Okay.
St. Louis, I think. All the other games are done.
Yeah, it's coming to the end of the day.
Yep.
Uh, Congratulations to the Toronto Blue Jays. You've officially given up the most runs today
Yes, that was
to
wild
the Orioles, who,
of all teams.
of all teams, they should. I don't know. Are the Orioles on a rebound? I feel like they're on a
I
rebound.
think, well, I thought they were going to be last season and it didn't quite work out for them, but this may be the year.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of talk about the Orioles and a lot of talk about the Royals this year. A lot of talk about Bobby Witt Jr. lifting those guys to the top, but we'll see.
Good. It's a team effort, and one of those teams is the Angels, who are officially under 500 as of today,
As usual.
as they usually do. In a not so pleasant performance against the literal worst team in the 2024 season.
Yeah, but hey, opening day, it had its highlights. It seems like a lot of teams that were supposed to be good really showed up. The Phillies with an exciting win in extra innings,
Yep.
which was cool to see. Paul Skeens on the mound had a pretty decent day. Gave up a couple runs, but still proved that he's Paul Skeens.
Hmm.
Um, some disappointments in there mixed in though, like that Angels game that you mentioned. Trout just couldn't get a clutch hit even though he's nice and healthy again.
He's not McClutchin.
No, turns out. Yeah, I don't know, a mixed bag, I think, opening day wise. Depending on the team that you're following. So yeah, we're still waiting on the Dodgers to wrap up, and also the late game tonight is the Cubs in Arizona or the
Yeah,
opposite?
yeah, Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
What about the Mariners? I think they're also in the late game
Oh,
too.
they might also be the night game tonight too. Yeah, two night
Yeah,
games.
yeah, Seattle's in there too.
So yeah, I
All
have
right.
access to everybody right now, theoretically. And what I mean by theoretically is I got an email today from Spectrum
Okay.
saying that they've expanded the Dodgers deal to anybody who has a Spectrum account.
Oh,
Yeah. They just said, hey, if you log in and say you have Spectrum Internet and mobile, which I do, I don't know if it's required to have both.
okay.
But I do. And yeah, it said I can just get them. I can get all the Dodgers games. And I'm like, okay.
Wait, through the Spectrum app or
No,
through?
through the MLB app. Basically, a new
Oh,
tab showed up on my MLB app on my Apple TV that says Spectrum Network LA, and supposedly games will be there. I say supposedly because the game running right now is the ESPN game, and thus it's not
right,
available on the Spectrum
right. It's a
network. But
national game at ESPN.
yeah, but presumably this means that because I'm paying for MLB TV, I'm getting the Spectrum deal, and I'm paying for FanDuel for Angels games. I got them all,
You did it. Your ass Ketchum.
ex except for if there's a TV deal, because the
Right,
ESPN games are blacked out everywhere.
right.
unless you have ESPN. And I don't have ESPN because I don't have cable anymore. So,
Okay.
yeah. But besides
I will
that,
need to check that out because I'm also playing for Spectrum Mobile
yeah,
and
check your emails.
internet.
They emailed me, so check your emails wherever
I
Spectrum
may have to
emailed
check
you.
my junk folder for that.
Yeah, it says it was just like
Okay.
yeah, keep up with the LA Dodgers at no extra cost is what the subject line is.
Well, we're not a Dodgers household, but
Me neither,
we still have to
but
throw on.
I can watch the occasional Otani at bat, I guess.
Yes. All
Anyway,
right. Anyways, other sports around the news.
believe it or
Uh,
not, other sports are still happening.
well, other sports are almost ending because the playoffs are
Yep.
creeping up for the MLB or for the NBA and the NHL. Locked in to the NBA playoffs, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Boston Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Of course, for every secured spot, that does mean we get official eliminations, including, but not limited to, the Hornets, the Wizards, the Pelican, and the Jazz.
Bye.
Um, Four teams you kind of expect to be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Over in hockey, they also have their playoffs coming on, including the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets. They've secured their spots. And on the other side of that coin, the Sharks and the Blackhawks have officially been eliminated.
Yep.
Over in Ovechkin watch, he scored two more. So he's at 889. He's now six away from breaking that record with 12 games left for said Capitals. Now, because they have secured the playoff spot, there is
Yep.
now some talks and questioning if they're going to rest him for the playoffs.
Maybe.
My guess is no, because they want him to get that record.
Maybe when he gets the record and then they put him on the
Yes,
bench.
once he gets the record, he's like, okay,
Yeah.
go get off the ice. We
Yeah.
keep you
You're
healthy.
done. You're done.
You got it. Congratulations. 10 minutes standing ovation. Wait, no, sorry, 8 minutes standing ovation. His jersey
8 minutes.
number.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, then there's the other playoffs, the D League. NCAA Tournament Madness continues with really only one kind of major upset happening this last weekend, which, by the way, all great games. All great games watching this thing. But the teams who are ranked higher turned out to be ranked higher on purpose, as only seeded 10 Arkansas beat number 2 St. John's. Arkansas at number 10 is the lowest seed remaining as they head into the Sweet 16 starting today, as of this recording. Uh, all remaining number 1 seeds still in the bracket, besides St. John's. The other three number 2 seeds still in the bracket. So no major upsets yet. Although at this point, with 16 teams left, it's kind of like not really an upset if you lose at this point. But we have seen it before where all number 1 teams end up in the final four. It's just been a while since that's happened.
Sure.
It also means like no, like Arkansas is the Cinderella team. If they can get behind who are they playing? Number 3 or ranked three seed Texas Tech.
Okay.
There's actually games going on right now with number 1 seed Florida currently ahead of Maryland 40-38, and number 2 seed Alabama currently over BYU 63-52, which tracks as the top seeds are just kind of making their way to the finals.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and lastly, in sports news, it's time! Not for the NFL, but for the other UFL. It's kickoff weekend, baby. We got the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Houston Roughnecks, your
Wow.
San Antonio Brahmas versus your Arlington Renegades, the Michigan Panthers versus the Memphis Showboats, and your rematch from the finals, Birmingham Stallions versus your DC Defenders. All those games will be on Fox and ESPN this weekend.
Wow. Football never stops, even when you want it to.
It never does. Even when you think it's done, there's always football just around the corner.
It's always sneaking up on you.
It is.
All right.
Um, yeah, I think that's all I got for sports.
Okay, cool. That's good because we need to move on. Let's move
Yep.
on to television news. Our story this week, it's about a familiar franchise coming back once again. Just like I don't know, the common cold. It comes back every few years to bite you in the ass. Yes, Scooby-Doo is back. Josh Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg will serve as writers and showrunners for a live-action version of the long-running cartoon show for 8 episodes at Netflix. First reported to be in development at Netflix back in April 2024 with a script to series commitment. The show will delve into how Mystery Inc. and their beloved Great Dane first teamed up together, because who isn't tired of an origin story at this point?
It's a reimagined origin story at this
Sure.
point because no one
The
saw
official
Scoob, right?
logline, yeah, I guess. The official logline for the show describes it as a modern reimagining of the popular cartoon show. Here's the quote. During their final summer at camp, old friends Shaggy and Daphne get embroiled in a haunting mystery surrounding a lonely, lost Great Dane puppy, a pup named Scooby Doo, if you will, that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder. That's the logline. Together with the pragmatic and scientific townie Velma, unrelated to Mindy Kaling Velma, and the strange but ever so handsome new kid Freddy, with or without Ascot, it remains to be seen. They set to solve the case that is pulling each of them into a creepy nightmare that threatens to expose all of their secrets. Sounds like Scooby Doo by way of Riverdale.
That's what
By
I was
by
thinking.
first blush, which could be okay.
Yes, but this is Netflix, so by way of Stranger Things,
Yeah, maybe that's also where they're going.
I mean, you could do. I mean, you could go two ways. You could either go the very young kid version, like Stranger Things. You could also go the teen version, like was it Lock and Key, and there are
Hmm.
other like Netflix shows that they've done. I doubt they're gonna go like full on adults here because it is a retelling of their first team up together. Also, summer camp, is that really what we're going for here?
Sure, I guess.
I don't know.
Eh,
Just it,
yeah,
it it seems too much like a first pass draft and be like, well, it's been a year. We gotta get this thing in development. Just give me what you got and we'll run with it.
yeah,
I just got that feeling from this thing.
sounds like it.
All right. Well, if you're that into Scooby-Doo, a new live action version is coming to Netflix.
Yep.
All right.
All right. We watched something, or you watched some things. I said we because I did. I'll just be brief. I watched the first 30 minutes of something and I did not finish it. The Studio on Apple TV.
Okay. Did you
So
enjoy the 30 minutes? Because that's what I was
we'll
going to watch next after Severance.
talk about it next week, but I went through a little bit of a roller coaster ride with that thing. Like I said, I haven't finished the first episode, but I do intend on it. And I do think I'm going to watch more. I think that it's a little jarring at first. The first 5 to 10 minutes are like, okay, I don't know if I'm jiving with the vibe of this show. I don't know if I'm laughing a lot, but the momentum really picks up and it gets super absurd and I ended up kind of enjoying it. So I'm gonna stick with it, and I do recommend you watch the pilot. Um, it's very Seth Rogen, so it really is going to depend on how you jive with Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and their kind of script style. So if you liked, Super Bad, if you liked This Is the End, stuff that
Hmm.
that they've worked on, this is very much in that vein. And it's very, no pun intended, because it's opening day, very inside baseball, which works for us because
Yes.
we know most of the references they're throwing out. But if you don't if you don't follow the entertainment business in the way that maybe we do, if you don't listen to this podcast, for example, a lot of stuff might fly over your head. So just people listening to this that may not be totally in tune, it's very inside baseball. It's very Hollywood for Hollywood people. So just know that going in.
that could be why a lot of critics are liking it because
Yes.
it makes a lot of those references.
I could see this being a little critical darling for Apple TV. But yeah, I'll continue with it. Yeah, I didn't, just for time constraints, I didn't have time to finish the episode.
All right. Like I said, I was gonna watch that, but I finished Severance because that ended this week.
Yes.
And here's my really quick takes on it because
Yeah.
it's already going along here and it's 10
Yeah.
episodes. One, these episodes really do be an hour. They seem really
No,
long. They seem
they
really
don't.
overly bloated, and I feel like a lot of the stuff that's happening in here could happen a lot faster and just take out a bunch of stuff. Especially where a lot of these characters are humming and hoeing and hawing instead of like make a decision. We know what
Right.
decision you're gonna make. Just make the
Right.
goddamn decision and let's move on. You can easily cut this thing in half if you get rid of all this back and forth with it.
Yeah, I have a
Also,
question for you.
answer.
Um, what do you feel about this backlash over this season? I feel like at the beginning everybody was super hyped, everybody loved season one. Do you think it is right that it is kind of getting not necessarily trashed, but a lot of talk about disappointment in the second season?
I think a lot of the disappointment, at least for me, what I can see from the show, is that it's got a I don't know if it got away from the overarching themes from the first season and instead tried to explore more of like the mystery of the company Lumen in the second season. Because the thing about Severance is that these people working in the company Lumen, like the idea is that they're completely different than the people on the outside. And the
Mm,
idea is that who you are at work isn't necessarily who you are on the outside. That's the basic overall like surface level premise
sure.
of Severances.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to do in season two is that they're trying to like merge these two personalities. Like the innie wants to be not the innie anymore. He wants to be part of the out. He wants to be part of the outside world. The only problem is that you can't have both your innie and the outie living in the same body at the exact same time.
Mm.
You can't be two separate people in one body at the same time. You can be like your separate personality in two separate locations, and that's just how you are. But trying
Oh.
to like find like a mathematical cohesion way of making these two things come together doesn't quite work, especially since
Mm.
you can have two separate conscious, but they still share the same body. Um, there's also some really weird and off-topic comments about consent between an innie and an outie,
Hmm.
because between what they do, like if while you're in the company, your outie has no say what you do with your body. Same
Sure.
thing with
Yeah.
reverse, that your outie has no say what happens, or your innie has no say what happens on the outside world.
So maybe to a
So
certain extent, they bit off a little too much more than they can chew for the themes this season. Like it just seemed to do too much.
I think a lot of people are reading too heavily into it, but that's also because
That's the internet.
like that. Well, one, that's the internet, but two, that's what they're showing is that there is no right answer. We can
Yeah.
give
Sure.
throw all these different scenarios, but we cannot provide a this is right, this is wrong answer. It's up
Right.
to you to draw your own conclusion, which is why there's such a divide in how either the innie or the outie, which team you side on.
Okay. Makes sense.
Which for me, I'm on the side of the outie that the outie is the one who made the decision to create the innie. The outie is the one who is, for all intents and purposes, the more true of the person rather than the person who's the innie for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, however long the workday is. Because the
Mhm.
innie only exists in a confined space. As soon as you break that doorway, does not no longer exist. The innie's like sight and their consciousness goes from entering the elevator to exiting the elevator and anything within the building. That is
Right.
their entire purpose. I mean, this goes like more like the whole philosophical of well, why are you confining their purpose? They should have freedom. Like you're creating this person, and they should have the freedom to go out and explore.
Right.
But in doing so, aren't you just then completely ignoring the outie here, who
Sure.
made the initial decision here in the first place to create this
Yeah.
person?
So it sounds like it's a fascinating, like it's presenting all these very fascinating ideas.
And it doesn't
But
want to pick a direction of where it wants
yeah,
to
as
go.
a television show, is it fun to watch and is it effective at doing it? And I feel like those two tests maybe that didn't pass as well as in this season as it did the first.
I don't think so because I'm having a lot more fun watching other shows like The Pit, like
Sure.
Paradise,
Yeah.
uh, like Severance for me just felt like with each episode being an hour, like, okay, I got to get
Homework.
through this. Homework. All right.
Yeah.
I know it's a good
That's
show.
unfortunate.
All right. I know what decision you're going to make. So stop like Doodle Valley here and just make the decision. I know what's going to happen. You don't need to like go back and forth and then come back 10 minutes later and being like, okay, you're right. We have to do this. Like, yes, of course they're right. Why were you not listening to them in the first place?
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Anyways, so yeah, like I said, after Severance, I thought about watching The Studio, but new show on Netflix got me more interested and more into that.
Adolescence. No?
Oh, almost. I literally almost clicked on Adolescence. That's
I'm
actually what I was
kidding. We
gonna
don't
go
have to
watch.
watch. We don't have to watch that. Okay.
Well, see, that's what I was originally gonna watch because it's 4 episodes and each episode is only an hour. But I didn't because I just got done watching hour-long episodes. I was like, okay, I don't
Sure.
want to do this again. So
Yeah.
instead, I watched the bite-sized 30-minute version of the new Shondaland, The Residence, which we talked about
Yes.
a couple weeks ago. So, murder at the White House.
Hmm.
Bringing a detective, have everything take place in one night, but also told in a series of flashbacks through a congressional committee of what happened the night of the murder.
Mm.
And it's funny, it's quirky, it's got a lot of that Shondaland charm into it. And a lot of the cast, like, first thing they bring up is that, like, why are there so many men here? Even though, like, the detective is a woman like herself. It's like, first she goes, like, man, 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 and man. Why all the men? It's like, yes, good observation. And it's just funny little quirky humor like that throughout this.
Yeah.
This is a predominantly black cast. I think it's purposely built that way,
Hmm.
but the way it's written and the way it's shown doesn't feel like it. It just feels like a cast.
Not really sure what you mean by that, but okay.
Hmm? I mean, it's like it
Like it
doesn't
doesn't bring
like
attention to it. It's just
doesn't
kind of
no
matter of
yeah it doesn't
fact.
have, yeah it doesn't bring
Okay.
attention to it. It doesn't bring attention to
Maybe a
like
better way to phrase that.
well because like they're all like butlers and servants to the White House. And yes, it's kind of like an overarching, like high
You're
level
just
theme to this.
you're digging the hole deeper.
I'll dig deeper because they say that these
They're
people are
aides, you
ushers.
mean? They're
No,
aides. They're workers at the White House.
no, they call themselves ushers.
Okay, sure.
They,
That's
they
not the word
call
you used.
they call themselves butlers, and I'm sorry, the butler did it.
Anyway,
They are
Lee
workers
Daniels the
at the White
butler.
House. Uh, could be, but at least like that took a more serious turn here.
Anyway.
It's fun, it's cute, it's charming. It's got that Shondaland charm, even though she didn't like create this, but it's she's like executive producer on it through Shondaland Productions, and it's fun. It's lighthearted. Yes, there's death and there's mystery to it, but it's in the same way that like Poker Face is lighthearted and charming and fun. That it takes itself very seriously because it is a murder, but the way the main character goes about solving everything and interacting with everyone has like her own quirks and has her
Mhm.
own like way of looking at the world and talking to everyone and letting other people talk and just like finding out like what pushes other people's buttons and getting them to spill their secrets and like saying, well, yes, you said this, but we also noticed this. So can you explain that? And
Right.
it's got the right set of like mystery detective, which I feel like a lot of shows are going into that like that deep mystery kind of like lore, even though they kind of don't need to. But it does feel like we're living in a very like mystery themed, murder mystery heavy kind of like shows. Um like not just with this, but like with like ever since Poker Face,
Hmm.
it feels like I've just seen like more murder mystery shows pop up.
Yeah. We here in this household we call that the Knives Out effect. Like
It
after
is.
Knives Out, we got, so many of these shows. They all sort of like all just followed.
Right. I think it's because a lot of like TV is kind of purposely built for it now. because unlike Murder, She Wrote, which we will always constantly reference, it doesn't have to reset after every single day. You can have a through narrative for a story,
Yeah.
and most of these like Netflix shows are essentially
Yeah.
like mini films.
We even have it in reality show form in The Traitors.
Yep. Ooh, speaking of, while I was on Netflix, new reality show called Secret Millions, literally based on like The Trust, which is also on Netflix,
Oh,
where uh, one person gets $1 million at the end, but you got to convince your other people you don't have the $1 million in your quarters.
okay.
And each day, like someone gets eliminated, and then only one person at the end will walk away with $1 million.
Interesting. But anyway, so
Uh,
yeah, that's the residents.
yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. Apparently, was looking this up. Like Andre Bauer was supposed to originally like be in
Oh,
this, but then when he
oh,
passed,
that's
they
sad.
recast to Giancarlo Esposito and reshot
Okay,
all the stuff with him.
got it.
Um, Funny enough, like having seen Giancarlo Esposito in like two films prior to this, where it felt like he did nothing. A lot more like interaction here.
Yeah,
Like a lot more meat in his character. A lot more like purposeful, like wise here.
yeah. And speaking of Far Cry, he was the villain in one of the Far Cry games.
Yes, he was.
Giancarlo
Um,
Esposito facts.
yeah, but
Anyway,
yeah, Residents. It's fun.
cool.
It's like they're 30-minute episodes, 30-40 minute episodes. It's on Netflix. It's 10 episodes or eight, yeah, 10 episodes.
Okay,
So it runs fast.
cool.
And the talking is fast. The dialogue
Yeah,
is fast. It moves quick. You're never in one room very long, and you're always getting new facts.
you love to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Then in that case, yeah, I don't really have anything. Like I said, we'll talk more about the studio next week. We'll table that conversation until you've seen it.
Hmm.
And then yeah, besides that, I'm still watching the John Mulaney thing on Netflix.
Yeah. Okay.
They
I've
got
not watched that
Mannequin
yet.
Pussy this week.
Oh, they
Yeah.
can show that.
So funny. I mean, it is Netflix, so they can probably do whatever they want.
Yes.
Yeah, I joked with Christy this morning. I'm like, whoever's picking the musical guest, is it me in my sleep? Am I doing it? Anyways. All right, let's move on. Let's do cancellations and renewals, shall
What
we?
am I no longer watching?
Unfortunately, this one's brutal to me. We're no longer watching After Midnight on CBS. It got canceled after its second season, but not because of the reason you're thinking of. I did some
Hmm.
research reading. So this was Taylor Tomlinson's choice.
Yep.
Apparently, they had renewed it for a third season. It was going to happen. She opted out because she didn't want to host it anymore. She wanted to focus on her stand-up career, going back and forth between her tour and flying back to LA for the tapings was probably putting a toll on her. And so she opted out. And in lieu of finding a new host, they just shut it down. So it will no longer be happening. CBS will once again have to figure out what to do with that slot because they obviously discontinued the late late show format. They could always bring it back.
Yeah, they could. I kind of stopped watching after season one. I watched the first
Yeah.
couple episodes of season two, and they completely redid the format,
They
and I was
completely
not a
changed it.
fan of it.
I actually like it better with the new format. I thought it works. I love the couch stuff. I like that she actually got like a full like talk show wedged in the middle of that thing. I like
Yeah,
it.
but I liked the tiny couch bit. I thought it was funny. I thought it was
It was
cute.
funny for a little bit, but no, it's sad to see it because I felt like it's been finding its legs. I feel like Taylor's a good host, but it does make sense that if you're her, that's not her passion. Her passion is
Hmm.
stand up. She wants to chase that passion, and she absolutely should, as long as she still can. Like I think that makes sense. That makes sense.
I mean, we've seen this before. Jay Leno did it a lot. Well, not like the canceling stuff, but he was still
Yeah,
wanting to do stand up, so he would always go to Vegas like every other weekend and perform
right.
stand up and then fly back.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just happy that Taylor made the best call for her, but sad that the show that I like is going to be ending. But hey,
Yeah.
you take the good with the bad these days.
Yeah. Well, you know what we should have done? Put in your top 5 shows.
Well,
That would
it
have
was
saved
on the
it.
bubble. It was almost in there, let me
That would
tell
have
you.
saved it.
Yeah, that would have done it. Yeah, sure. The Media Boat podcast endorsement would have saved it, I'm sure. Taylor
Yes,
would have seen it herself and she would have been like, I changed my mind. Um, let's continue with cancellations and renewals. Paramount Plus is bringing back School Spirits for a third season.
because even ghosts have to go to school.
I guess so. Apple TV Plus has confirmed that a third season of Severance
Wait,
will
no, better
indeed
joke.
happen. Wait,
Better
wait.
joke.
Okay.
School spirits, the afterlife special.
I feel like if you emphasized life there, the joke would have hit better. The Afterlife special.
Yeah.
Anyways. Anyway, yeah, Severance is getting a third season, whether you like it or not, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
Hallmark is bringing back Wind Calls the Heart for a 13th season, special to Media Boat lore. Wind Calls the Heart.
Yes. If someone is still
CBS
watching that,
CBS is bringing back Watson for a second season, which Christy keeps saying she wants to watch it because the guy is like the
Chestnut
guy
Morris.
is
Morris Chestnut.
yeah,
Yeah.
the guy is hot. She thinks the guy is hot, but she doesn't want to watch it because I forget her reason. There's a reason why she doesn't want to watch it, but she thinks the guy is hot. I don't know. Anyways,
Because it's not really following the footsteps of Elementary, which starred Lucy Liu as Watson.
no, I don't think she cares about that kind of lore. I forget. But anyway,
Okay.
and then lastly, we have one death to talk about this week. A rough one from the boxing world and the world of what things that may have been on your kitchen counter at some point. George Foreman, age 76, obviously famous for being a world championship boxer. The Rumble in the Jungle, his most notable and named fight. Was an Olympic champion back in 1968 before that. But yes, most of our generation knows him as the guy with the grills. A George Foreman grill was once in my possession, and I cooked many a burger on it.
Yes, I think we owned a George Foreman grill,
I
or at
think we
least a
did.
version of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, also notable that he named all his children after him.
Yes, that is also true.
George Foreman, Georgia Foreman, George Foreman 2.
Yeah. Also, the local burger joint next to me, MVPs, they have a series of burgers that are also named George Foreman 2, George Foreman 3, George Foreman. I
Yes.
think Christy gets the George Foreman 6, which has feta cheese on it.
Yeah.
Anyways, RIP
Anyways,
George Foreman.
yes, will be missed.
All right, let's move on to our last segment of the show, which is movies. And we always start the movie section with the weekend box office numbers. And nailed it. Yeah, you get to hang up the phone. I get to pick it up
Yes.
because Snow White did not make it to the $50 million threshold, settling at 42 million in its first week, meaning you can put the point under my name.
Okay, I'll put the point under you.
I win.
Uh, you know, I didn't realize how many people did not know Snow White was in theaters and
No,
or
no one
realize
cares.
that they didn't care about what Snow White was.
Yep. No one cares. Number two, Black Bag, which made $4.2 million this week. That's at 14.7. Number three, Captain America Brave New World, still hanging in there at 4 million. Maybe we were wrong. Could it make it to 200? It's at 192 right now.
Oh no,
Two more
because
weeks?
that's probably still made $4 million.
Yeah, it could still do it. Number four, Novocaine with 3.6 million this week. That's at 15. And number five, Mickey 17 rounds out your list with 3.6 this week. That's at 40. Way down at number 14 is Magazine Dreams with only $700,000. And at number 16, Ash only made 690K. So we were
Yep.
right in writing those off.
Yes, those were your other two new releases
Yeah.
for the past week.
This week, coming up, we have a triplicate of releases here. We have Death of a Unicorn.
Yes, A24's horror version of a unicorn being killed and out for revenge,
Oh, damn.
starring everyone's favorite Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega.
Sure. We also have The Woman in the Yard.
Also, a horror film where a woman dressed in black, sitting on a chair, etches ever so closely to the household. Symbolism
Okay.
for death.
Yeah, yes, definitely is. And then lastly, A Working Man
Jason Statham.
is a working man.
Well, no, it stars Jason Statham in like an
Okay.
action movie. Yeah,
All right.
the
That's all you
Jason
need to
Statham
know.
movie.
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
That's why I stopped.
All right. Well, those are your new releases. What the hell are we gonna do? I don't think any of those are strong enough.
You think Snow White's gonna pull over
I think
with
Snow
at least
White
20?
does, but yeah, let's cut it in half. Let's go 20.
All right, so you think it's gonna go over under 20 then?
Since I went last week, you get to pick first this week.
All right.
Since it does
Uh
probably matter who the order, we probably need to keep that in mind.
well, it does because like I want to say Snow White's gonna sink like a rock.
Yeah.
20, I mean half would be put at right 20.
Ah,
I want to say with all my heart and all my belief that Death Decor would do more than $20 million. I just don't think so because A24 and it's very like niche market. So
okay.
while yes, Snow White will hold over, I would go over 20.
Over 20. Okay. I will take under 20 then.
I don't,
Let's
it's not going to sink that much,
It's
right?
not a
Even
3 day weekend for most people. It is for me, but not for most people. So I don't
no,
think we're going to get a benefit
we
from
don't
that.
count 3 day weekends this upcoming. It's either Chavez Day.
Yeah. Only me gets that off. Um, all right. Let's make an awful pivot into our story this week, which is really depressing and sad.
I have another story that's also depressing and sad.
Well, we got this one, so I'm going to read this one. Yes, so no other land won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature this past Academy Awards. It, of
Yeah,
course,
which were like
is
only a month ago, start of the
only
month.
a month ago, a little less than a month ago. But yes, of course, the film was about the current Palestinian experience in Gaza during the Israeli occupation. Well, this week we learned that the co-director of the Oscar-winning Israel-Palestine documentary, Hamdan Ballal, was reportedly forcibly removed by the Israeli army from an ambulance following a brutal attack by settlers and subsequently detained without clear information regarding his whereabouts. It wasn't until earlier this week that he had been freed, according to social media posts by co-director Yuval Abraham. The quote from the post says, after being handcuffed all night and beaten in a military base, Hamdan Ballal is now free and is about to go home to his family. That was posted on Tuesday. But before that was posted, though, there was a little bit of a panic because
Mhm.
he was lost. No one knew where he was. His co-director did not know. His agent did not know. It was a complete mystery. And for such horrible violence to be done to this guy is just emblematic of what's going on right now and kind of really shows no other land as a piece of filmmaking in a new light because it's not just viewing from the outside. The actual directors of the picture are at risk of the same experience that's depicted in the documentary. This is real. This is happening. This is active. And the director was right to point out on social media the US Academy, the Academy that gave them the Oscar, was silent while this happened. Nobody from the Academy made a statement. Overseas, the UK did, but we didn't. That's embarrassing for the Academy to not like acknowledge that some brutal violence happened to somebody who just received your award, not 4 weeks ago. Like the memories are like goldfish, and it's just wild that we were just honoring this guy, and all of a sudden he's in danger and lost, and we don't have any effort to change anything of the experience. If I was a major academy member right now, if I was your George Clooney's, your Tom Hanks of the world right now, I would be stopping everything and making a statement about this, trying to get some sort of movement happening to bring awareness to what's happening in Gaza. This was a perfect opportunity. Not that there needs to be opportunities to do something, because that's just good to point out a genocide and good to point out violence. But if there was an opportunity to get an audience to see that and get the American people talking about it, this was that. And it's so frustrating to me that one, this is happening and nobody's saying anything about it. And two, that it's still happening. And that this was that it was a ceasefire deal that Israel reneged. Like this just keeps happening over and over again, and we just have to turn a blind eye to it because the media doesn't want to talk about it because these like the celebrities don't want to talk about it. The people in power don't want to talk about it. They just want to ignore it. But it's happening and it's real and people like this are affected. It just yeah, it's just wild to me. It's wild to me.
It's more than just being ignoring that it's happening. It's the cognitive dissonance
Mm,
between like what we here in the US watch on film, even
yeah,
watching documentaries. Like you can
right.
understand that, yes, this is a documentary. I'm watching it, this is actually happening. But then to have it like in your social media feed, in your actual news feed, making the
Mm,
news, the fact that we're talking about it, not just as a thoughts in like a film, but like this is like actually happening, like puts the more emphasis on what documentaries are meant to do, which is
yes,
shine light in the darkness, bring
right.
forth these stories that most people sitting in the comfort of their homes watching this, sitting in the comfort of the movie theater
Yeah,
watching this, are not going to be experiencing on a daily basis.
yes,
But that's
you're
what
right.
this social media here and this campaign to like try and find where Hamdan was,
Hmm.
trying to find out like what's happening, like the immediate response from the co-director to put out like petitions
Hmm.
and awareness to make sure that he was safe. I mean,
Yeah,
safe enough, like being handcuffed and beaten is not a safe environment for anybody, no
no,
matter like guilty or innocent. Not something anyone
yeah.
should be going through.
You brought up a good point. This is why documentary film is as powerful as it is, and it's why we honor it, and it's why that Oscar exists. Documentary has the power of showing somebody who may not be aware of something the reality of the situation and to give that power and give that voice. There's been a lot of talk lately about what is the relevancy of the Oscars? Why do we still do it? Like going into this year, it's like, oh, like, are they like who's watching this telecast anymore was a very common question. And I think the the theoretical ideal answer to that question is stuff like this. What if this was a way to mobilize people? What if people were like, oh shit, no other land, which we've seen because it got an Oscar, like we need to do something about this. And it changed like that could be the power of something like the Oscars. It gives the award show a use case. But it failed at doing that because the people involved didn't say anything about it. Sure, maybe, Joe, football, who was watching like on a Sunday because football was over and was like, oh, I've never heard of that. Maybe he didn't think about it. But somebody who was there, an actor, like I said, like who was there at the Academy and listened to the passionate speech of these directors when they received that Oscar, they should have said something, right? They were there. They presumably watched the film when they voted. You're right. Cognitive dissonance. What's happening here? These things have power, but only if we give them power. And they need to use that power.
And it's more than that because you can make connections between what's happening in Israel and
Mm.
Palestine and what happened with Northern Ireland in this documentary here, or documentarian, with what's happening here in the US as well. But we're not a political podcast, so I'm not how much we can get into
You really think so? I don't know. The last 5 minutes maybe
into like
proved you wrong,
the
but
whole like Venezuelan planes and laws and like it's easy to bury your head and say try to
yeah,
ignore it, but ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Ignoring it doesn't make it better. Ignoring it
right.
does not help people.
Yeah. So ultimately, this is a depressing story. I'm glad that he's safe now. I'm
Mhm.
glad that he was able to return to his family. But as long as this is still the situation in occupied Gaza, people are constantly in danger, and there needs to be something done. If you are a politician, please do something about this because something has to change. All right. Anyways, Moana 2. What is this podcast that we do?
Then there's Moana too.
Um, we don't have to go long on Moana 2.
All right.
Um, I will say my piece on Moana 2. It is so forgettable and such a little fluffy piece of nothing that I honestly don't remember most of what happens in that film, and I just saw it a week ago.
I too watched it on Friday last week. And all I can remember is Moana getting tattoos.
Yeah, what is that supposed to suggest, by the way? The movie doesn't make it clear. Is she a demigod or did she just get tattoos? I don't.
Magical tattoos. Also, did she die and be resurrected as a demigod?
Yeah, there's so many questions that the is not interested in answering. The whole time I was thinking this would have been so much better if they just had kept it a series. There are so many characters that we just quickly have to meet and then quickly have to accept that they're friends now that don't do anything.
They're each there for one purpose later in the film, and
Right.
that's it. Just
It just felt.
conveniently there for that one purpose.
And Moana trusts them immediately? Also,
Yeah.
if Moana is constantly in town, how is she meeting these people for the first time?
I know, she becomes her like, yes, I know you, Moana, Chief's daughter.
Yes, she is basically in charge. How does she not know who these people are or their names? Doesn't she just say like, "Hey, mechanic girl," or like, "Guy," like she should know who these people are. It's not a very big island. They're a
As
tight-knit
the
community.
as
They
the daughter
established
of the
that in
chief
Moana
and the
1.
next in line, which was very well established in Moana 1.
Yeah, it's like, and also why there's just so many questions in this film. Why did they introduce this like was she a spider lady? I forget. She's
She's the villain, but she's not really the
No,
villain.
she's not though, because she's like there for one song, and then immediately she's like, "Oh, actually, I'm not bad.
I'm
Actually, I
not
was
that bad.
helping
I'm
you, and bye. I'm never gonna show up in this movie again." And they're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, bye." What? It is such a strange movie that's oddly paced, that looks somehow worse than Moana 1, and like the water. I was just like thinking about like the water looks so good in Moana 1. What happened? And then, well, I know what happened, obviously, but and then songs, I could not tell you any of them.
nope, trying to think of it. Nope, they're not catchy.
Nothing. There's even a song that basically tries to be "You're Welcome To," where they try to pack a bunch of Lin-Manuel style rapping for The Rock to do, except it's got an awful chorus where The Rock sounds like shit, and they can't do Lin-Manuel raps. So it's like jumbled and it doesn't sound as good. It's like, what were they doing? At least auto-tune the poor guy. Dwayne's out there drowning and doing that song.
You mean he's sinking like a rock?
Yeah. It's such a weird movie with so many weird choices in it.
I don't know. And then top it all off at the very end, sequel bait.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I I want to live in the alternate universe where that was a series because I feel like if it was, they could have introduced us to these characters. They
Mhm.
could have had arcs. They could have established what happened to Moana. That we could have built up lore to that point. But the movie can't stop for anything because so many things have to happen. And so it just feels like we're just moving from thing to thing to thing to thing again, which makes sense if you're a TV show because those would have been set pieces every week. But having it in a movie like this, it just seems so rapid fire that you just get lost in all of it.
Because somehow you take, even at the lowest point, 8 episode series, half-hour episodes.
Yeah,
That's essentially 4 hours worth of material being
right. That's
created.
twice as long as this movie is.
And this movie's just over 90 minutes.
Yeah. It just doesn't, it's too much crammed into a little package that doesn't deliver on any of the things that Moana 1 delivered. I didn't even mention the fact that there's no emotional center in this thing.
Mhm.
There's no payoff. Oh, Moana doesn't do or change at all in this film. There's no struggle for her. She's the whole time just the same Moana. Like there's a little bit of doubt at the beginning, but it's immediately gone.
And then even like once she does become the demigod or whatever,
Hmm.
like everyone just comes. That's
Yeah.
it. They just automatically know where to
Everybody's just
go.
like, yeah, sure, we're
Why?
here.
How? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so weird. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. We don't need to go too much more on that. But yeah, it's don't bother. Like honestly, I'm to the point where like I'm just gonna pretend it didn't happen and I'm just going to enjoy Moana 1.
What do you mean? You mean the live action Moana that that's still in production?
Oh God, I keep forgetting that's happening. Oh, if it looks as bad
Reminded.
as if it looks as bad as this Lilo and Stitch one does. Oh man.
I don't think Maui's gonna be that fluffy. Although they do give, he does have like the long, luscious locks, Troy
Yeah.
Polamalu style.
Yeah. True.
Head and Shoulders commercials.
Yeah, there you go. Just get Troy
There's your
Polamalu.
tie-in. Pay me.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, that's enough. That's enough for
Yeah.
this podcast. We got to go.
All right, let's wrap it up here. You
All
got
right.
hummus to make.
Yeah, I got hummus to make. Hummus pasta. I'll send you the
Yes.
recipe. It's really good.
Oh,
Um, anyway, that's been the Media Boat Podcast. We'll be back next week. Yes, next week will be our big Nintendo Switch 2 blowout. We'll talk about the reveal, any games that are announced, maybe. Who knows what they'll talk about. But that will be next week on Thursday, so check that out. Well, the direct is on Wednesday, but we'll talk about it on our show on Thursday. We'll also have more baseball updates for you. We'll have more playoff updates for you for basketball and hockey. We will talk about all sorts of other stuff. I'm sure I might play a little bit of Atom Fall. Check out what the hell's up with that. Um, but yeah, that's it for the teases. If you want to catch us, we are on video form on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search Media Boat Podcast. Find our channel. Like, subscribe, and comment on our videos. Click the bell for notifications when new ones go live. You can also find us in audio form, any podcast catcher. Just search Media Boat Podcast. You can also find us on social media on Blue Sky. We're mediaboat.bsky.social. Search MediaBoat there to find us. Also follow Lit Up Halo at Blue Sky. No, I'm not going to plug my own shit. You can also find us at mediaboatpodcast.com, our archive of our show, which is way out of date. I need to update that thing. But parents are here, not my parents. And so it's been busy. And so, yeah. And then you can email us if you have questions, comments, feedback about the show. Don't like my Angels hat, whatever you got. That's mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. All right. We'll see you next week.
we'll be
Bye-bye.
back next week with more news, more thoughts, and more of us.
Yep.
All right, bye.